Well, we had a nice little break, and I want to formally welcome our Minister of Works and Transport, Senator the Honorable Rohan Sinanan. Thank you very much, Minister Sinanan, for taking your time. I begged him plenty to come. I was telling him he's maritime oriented. He has to come and talk to the maritime fraternity, so thank you very much. Senator the Honorable Rohan Sinanan was born in the community of Sangre Grande and entered the world of business and entrepreneurship over 36 years ago. His passion and pursuit into the business world developed as a consequence of his attentiveness during his father's long history and career as a well-known businessman in the food industry in the community of Sangre Grande. He eventually became the chief executive officer of a large and successful holdings company. In his capacity of CEO, Senator Sinanan has extensively worked in diverse areas of finance, insurance, real estate, and the food industry. Senator Sinanan holds an MBA in Business Administration and has served as the Deputy Chairman of the Tunapuna Piarco Regional Corporation. His successful career in business did not limit his passion for helping people, and over the last 20 years, he has been involved in charities and several volunteer organizations, giving back to deserving initiatives in his childhood community, as well as others throughout Trinidad. Senator Sinanan also possesses a substantial political experience. As a long-standing member of the People's National Movement, he currently serves as a deputy political leader of the party. He first entered Parliament in November 2015 as a temporary senator. In June 2016, he was appointed as a government senator and as a Minister of Works and Transport with effect from October 31st, 2016. After the PNM's victory at the August 2020 general election, he returned to the Senate and the position of Minister of Works and Transport on August 2019-2020, where he continues to serve to date. Senator Sinanan is happily married to Pamela Sinanan with one child. Let's welcome the Honorable Rohan Sinanan.
Thank you. Good morning. And let me start by apologizing, one, for running a little bit late, and two, for running away right after I take a couple questions. The reason for that is simply we have a joint select going on in the Parliament, and I'm supposed to be in front of the television until it's completed. But this morning gathering is very, very important. Apart from the fact that the maritime sector is probably, I would put it as one of the most important sector for us as a country, because it is an industry that we have been taking for granted for too long. And the fact that I did get buff a couple times for treating the maritime sector, and not the maritime sector, but the Shipping Association as a bastard child. So I apologize to my team at the Parliament right now. And I said that if I'm not here this morning, I think that is it. The marriage between the Ministry of Works and the Shipping Association will be broken up. So I had to come here this morning to show you all the importance of the shipping industry to the Ministry of Works and Transport. All right? And let me start by saying I don't think that you all have gotten the recognition for the fantastic job you all did. Not only now, especially during that period of the COVID pandemic. I think the Port of Spain, the Port of Point Lisas, the shipping industry, and everybody who was involved in the movement of food into Trinidad and out of Trinidad to the Caribbean islands, I don't think anybody have paid you the respect that you deserve. We were one of the few countries where all the supermarket shelves were filled all the time. Even in America, there were challenges to get food. And we saw pictures of that. But it's because of people like yourself who ensured that shipping and the maritime sector and the ports remain open. Trinidad and Tobago got an A grade for the way we handled COVID. So I want to congratulate you all and thank you all for the effort that you have made. As I said this morning, I will be very brief. I think the presence here this morning to me is more important than some of the things we have been telling you all for the longest while and never came into practice. And I am one person who, I don't mess around with the words. If it didn't work, it didn't work. But we have to try to get it to work. We have to try to get it to work. At the Ministry of Works and Transport, I have been working closely with the Director of Maritime Services because we have established 2 areas at the ministry where we can be revenue earners rather than be, according to the Minister of Finance, the spenders of all the money that the country has. Because our ministry basically deals with infrastructure, the transportation sector, which is basically subsidized, the sea transportation, PTSC, all these things are subsidized. We have 2 areas that fall under the Ministry of Works and Transport that I feel can bring Trinidad a lot of foreign exchange, and there are 2 industries that are very important for the future of this country. One is the maritime sector, and the other one is the aviation sector. The aviation sector and the maritime sector are 2 areas where we talk about international, in terms of the employment, the rates are based on international standard. And because of our location, one, the fact that we have a population here who are highly trained and highly educated in both the field of maritime sector and the aviation sector, and in terms of the stability we have in terms of governance. Those 2 areas can attract international investors. Unfortunately, we have not paid the kind of attention to the sectors that is required. Sometimes it takes dip in oil price. Sometimes it takes some proof to show that, look, we don't have an unlimited amount of the natural resources. And the blue economy is something that will always remain with us. Why not tap into it? Part of the 2030 vision was basically to develop that blue economy. And that's where you fall smack into that. Working with the Director of the Maritime Services, within the last 2 or 3 years, we have virtually transformed or trying to transform the way we look at the maritime sector. The Shipping Association plays a significant role in that. I can tell you just right now before the Cabinet, we have several bills. We have one before the Parliament, which is the Shipping Act. Only yesterday, knowing that I was coming here this morning, I had to get an update from my colleague. It is before the Joint Select Committee of Parliament, and I have asked him if we could bring that bill forward. It's been sitting there for the last 2.5 years, which I think is too long, but it's a very large bill. I think it's over 500 or 600 clauses. Oh, 1,000, I'm being told. That was probably the largest bill to pass through the Parliament in probably since 1956. And probably that is why it's taken so long. But my colleague gave me the assurance yesterday that he will try to get that bill through the Parliament, and hopefully we will have the new Shipping Act that will assist us in going forward. We also have, and I want to compliment the Director of Maritime Services. I don't know how much of you, interact with him, but he is very, very excited about where the maritime sector is going. I have seen more notes coming to me as Minister for the Maritime Division in the Ministry of Works I mean, he's right now competing with the road section and the drainage section. I say, hey, you cool yourself a little bit every minute. He walks into the office, we need to do this, we need to do that. But it is so important to us that we actually have a note in front of the cabinet for the small boats, to regulate small boats and pleasure crafts, which I'm hoping to get out of the cabinet within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we can regulate that industry. We also have the party boats, which seem to be, to some of us, great entertainment, but a large amount of us are a nuisance, because it is something that if we don't regulate, it's an accident waiting to happen. And if we really wanted to show that Trinidad and to be serious about the maritime industry, there are some decisions that we're going to have to take to regulate the industry. So that is another area that we're seriously looking at regulating. And it's not about putting anybody out of business. It's just trying to make it safer for everyone. Because the last thing we want to happen is accidents in our maritime sector that gives, that tarnishes the amount of good things that we have going for us. We have several other pieces of adjustments being brought forward by the director in the Maritime Division, which I know will put us on the path where we want to go with the maritime sector. Unfortunately, I want to accept that I don't spend enough time with the Shipping Association, as I should, and as I told your president, Ms. Sonja was here, that we will correct that situation. One of the areas that I really want us to look at, though, is how do we regulate the Shipping Association? Because just recently, we had an instance where a vessel was actually, an agent was convicted for a vessel, and Guide Me, Director of Maritime Services, for leaving the port without the harbour master's permission. That doesn't augur well for the Shipping Association, if that is one of your members. So I am in full support of us regulating this, and you, the association, playing a major role in how we regulate the system. Because look what happened in Tobago. That oil spill, up to now, we can't find out anything, with the best of efforts being made. In Trinidad, unfortunately, anybody can just come in and be an agent, and really there's no regulations. So I am hoping that coming out of today, me leaving the Joint Select, and the Joint Select is on the San Fernando to Point Fortin Highway. As Minister for the last 8 years, this is probably the most important Joint Select, apart from the boats that I would have faced at the ministry. But I see the importance of us finding that synergy where we could regulate this industry. So you have my support. I was a little bit hesitant when I spoke to your president after I got a buffin in a carnival fete. And she actually bought her pastor with her as proof that where this regulation is coming from. But after seeing what happened since then to now, clearly we need to regulate this industry a bit. Clearly we need to regulate this industry, because there are sometimes I refer to the maritime sector and the shipping that takes place there. And I feel that it goes back to the days of piracy. And the only thing changed is probably the clothes that people wear. Because if we don't regulate the system, you could term it to be like that. Because there are some unscrupulous people in the industry. And we can't run from it, as in every industry. But the shipping industry is something that is too critical for us as a country to just allow it to go on like it is. I recently attended a seminar in Miami on the future of ports in the world. And I can tell you that was an eye-opener for me. Because what I see going forward is that Trinidad and Tobago will play a pivotal role in that maritime sector for the entire Caribbean. Because we have a lot of changes taking place. I mean, with the IMO, new regulations about pollution and how ships have to slow down in order to change the amount of emissions and all these kind of things, the industry going to change. And a lot of ports in the Caribbean may not be able to afford the upgrades that is required. Because in some areas, they may have bigger ships coming through. And that calls for a lot of capital investment into ports. And I don't know much Caribbean islands could afford that. So countries like Trinidad will have to invest and be basically the major ports in the Caribbean, and the other islands more feeder ports. So we have to upgrade. In terms of the port of Port of Spain, I know for a fact that have been consideration, because we do have the RFP being finalized now by the IDB, and very soon we will see an RFP going out for PPP for the cargo handling aspect, the international cargo handling aspect for the port. We feel that too is just to bring more efficiency in the port and to keep up with what is really required in the future in terms of what port operations will be. If we get someone who's interested, and at the end of the day, the benefits renowned to the citizens of this country, and the government goes through with it, that is good. However, we will continue to invest in the port. And I know the port of Port of Spain, and Ashley, I don't mean to use your forum to speak on another port, but the port of Port of Spain, the government will continue to invest. We do have a major capital program where we looking at the cranes. We bought in, I think, 2 new cranes so far. We are upgrading all the equipment, the trucks and everything. Whenever we get a partner, then that will kick in. But until then, the port of Port of Spain, we will continue to invest into that port, because we see that port as still being a viable port for us here in Trinidad. In terms of the dry docking facilities, some of you may be interested in knowing what is going on with Carry Dock. Carry Dock is still a major part of the government assets now. And we intend to operate Carry Dock, get it back in operations, whether it be whatever format we may take going forward. But the idea now is to get a dry dock into Carry Dock in the shortest possible time. Because the maritime sector, again, is very important to us. So we are now working with the board at Carry Dock to get the Carry Dock operations back up and running. There's a tender being evaluated for a new dock, a built dock, and very soon you'll see another tender coming out for the rental of a dry dock, because we can't keep the facilities down. A dry dock is not something you go on a shelf and you buy. It is something that has to be built, and that will take some time. The instructions to NIDCO is that, look, we should go out to get a temporary dock now, because the demand for dry docking is significant. Just recently, we had to actually bring in a vessel to dry dock our fast ferries here, and that is not cheap. And the demand for services at Carry Dock is significant. So the government will continue to invest into the maritime sector. We see the maritime sector as a major player for us going forward. It is one of the areas, I mean, maritime and aviation, that I want to really get off the back burner into the front burner. I can tell you at the airport, we have a park there where we spend millions of dollars just sitting idle for the last, 15 years. 15 years, where we spend millions of dollars to develop. No interest, nobody pushing it. We went out for an RFP recently. So at EOI, we got a lot of people interested. However, we're going to go back out for RFP to get that park operational. And that park could bring 3,000 or 4,000 highly paying jobs in the aviation sector in Trinidad. And similar, the maritime sector is one area that we want to push to get this maritime sector up to the standards that is expected for a country with a geographic location like Trinidad and Tobago. It is a sector that we have never really tapped into. A lot of talk, a lot of functions, a lot of knocking glasses and promises. But really and truly, how far have we moved in the last 15 years with this sector? Not far. And I have given the Maritime Director, I have given your President the commitment that the ministry doors are open and let us get this sector going the way it should be.